Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight. We talk about the latest news, information and analysis of what's really going on in Russia and the BRICS. Now, my name is Rhod Mackenzie, and today I want to talk about how it's been announced that the leading BRICS countries have engaged in a series of discussions with one another, showcasing their close relationship and a shared desire to safeguard themselves from the protectionism and tariffs of Donald Trump in the USA. Now, it's been confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin will be travelling to Alaska with the full support of the main BRICS countries rather than negotiating alone with the US leader. Collectively, Russia, China, India and Brazil have a combined global influence that certainly surpasses that of the United States. So what are the reasons behind their willingness to support Russia? Well, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reported that he had a substantive conversation with President Putin, and both countries reaffirmed their commitment to further deepening their special and privileged strategic partnership. Now, a memorandum was also signed by Brazil and Russia with the aim of strengthening financial and economic cooperation between the two countries, and the creating of a permanent platform for addressing economic issues between the two countries. Then, following the consultations with the leaders of Russia and India, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva held telephone conversation with President Xi Jinping of China. Now, Xi Jinping emphasised the necessity of collectively countering unilateral approaches and protectionist measures by the United States. Now, Xi Jinping also added that relations between Brazil and China were at a historic high. Now, before I continue, I would like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and contribute to its further development. Now, you can do this by making a small donation, which you can do by clicking on the thanks button at the right hand side of the bottom of the video screen. It's in a sub menu under the three dots on the right hand side, or you can also buy me a coffee link below in the credits. Now, everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me. I do keep the comments coming, love to read them, love to respond to them, and you guys are really, and girls are really clever. I really do enjoy your comments. Now, this meeting in Alaska is occurring against the backdrop of the tightening restrictions of the US. On August the 1st, President Trump imposed a further 25% tariffs on India due to its purchase of Russian oil. Now, these measures are scheduled to come into force on the 21st of August. He also imposed increased trade tariffs on Brazil. Now, following a review of the current sanctions, it was decided to delay the introduction of the secondary sanctions due to the purchase of Russian oil for a period of 90 days. While there's no indication that this delay will be lifted, the overall picture appears to demonstrate that the collective position of BRICS nations prior to the negotiations between Putin and Trump is, "We're with you, Putin." Previously, each meeting was presented as a bilateral event. However, the synchrony and rhetoric of these meetings sends a clear signal to the US that Russia has a serious diplomatic presence on behalf of the BRICS at this meeting. It's both a strengthening of Putin's position in the talks on Friday and an attempt to demonstrate to the US that sanctions and tariff pressure are going to be met with a coordinated response from the BRICS, and a reminder that Russia and the BRICS are alternative markets and they support each other in politically and in energy and trade. Now, it's evident that both Brazil and India require serious support to effectively challenge Trump's policy, while China has a strong position in trade and finance, and its capabilities are not unlimited. However, when combined, the BRICS countries' GDP is far greater than that of the United States, meaning they have more economic power. Plus, the US is very import-centric from where the other countries are not such there. They also have very diversified resource bases. Russia has energy, Brazil has agriculture, China's the industrial capacity, and India has the IT and pharmaceutical sectors. And they trade with each other, and that's reduced their dependence on the dollar and Western markets by using their own currencies. Now, the sanctions pressure imposed on one participant can be partially offset by the other BRICS countries, according to Igor Chernov. Interaction with Trump has also demonstrated that regardless of a nation's actions, whether it's attempts to accommodate the US, such as Japan did, for instance, or even maintains a trade deficit with the US, as Brazil does, importing more American goods than its exports back to the US, tariffs from the US are inevitable. Now, it's become evident that a more effective approach would be to engage in a direct conflict and push back with the United States. I mean, it appears that those who engage in trade disputes with the US, such as China, are granted almost permanent exemptions from the imposition of import duties. Now, it seems that Beijing has the ability to exert pressure on the US, given its status as one of America's primary trading partners and the one that the US has the largest trade deficit with. Now, the imposition of substantial tariffs on Chinese goods will trigger an economic downturn in the US. I mean, it imports that much stuff. Additionally, the US relies on China for its access to rare earth metals, so its car industry, military industrial complex, etc. will suffer. So you need to cooperate against the US with each other, and your chances of success increase significantly. I mean, if the EU and the US impose reciprocal tariffs on each other's goods, it would indicate that Trump's administration's assertive trade strategy is not yielding the results it wanted, and maybe actually prompt a review of these policies, according to Yushkov, who's a member of the National Energy Security Fund in Russia. Now, Brazil, India and China are aligning with Russia, primarily not just for Russia's benefit, but their own strategic interests. I mean, India has a strong incentive to continue importing Russian oil and maintaining the associated profits from the sale of the oil products. Now, it's clear that all parties, that any refusal will result in an increase in the price of oil. Should Delhi opt not to purchase 1.8 million barrels per day from Russia, it would be almost impossible to secure that amount of oil from alternative sources. Consequently, then Russia would need to adjust its production levels, which is likely to cause significant increases in the cost of any oil for India. Now, if both India and China decide to refuse Russian oil, then about 7 million barrels of oil products and gas condensate will leave the market, and there's nowhere in the world will able to replace this, even in the very near future. So you're going to see prices soar to $200 a barrel. And India and China themselves do not need that sort of situation. However, it should be noted that refusing Russian oil still doesn't guarantee that India and China, that the US will remove the import duties from them and provide favourable terms of trade. I mean, it's not in China's interest for Russia to suffer a geopolitical defeat, because otherwise the West will turn Russia into a hypothetical Ukraine and will say that China wants to attack Russia and they need to resist the Chinese threat. It's evident that such a transformation of significant trade and energy partnerships and neighbours into a threat is not required by China, according to Yushkov. Plus, it's imperative for all BRICS but China to ensure the continued flow of supplies of oil and gas from Russia via the pipelines and the Northern Sea route, as this route is widely regarded as the safest one. It's important to note that all fuel that is transported by sea from the south can be stopped by the US in some of those places like the Malacca Strait, Suez Canal, etc. So it's logical for countries of the global south to collaborate and present an alternative to the Western imposed global order. For instance, the West asserts that all nations should reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and imposes these targets on them. However, they haven't provided any alternative solution to that, whereas the BRICS now has the opportunity to propose an alternative way. Now, the key priority is to fight against energy poverty, and that means affordable energy must be available to all the countries of the global south and Asia. And that's with a view to increasing the level of the well-being of their population. So to achieve this, it's essential that all countries are given the opportunity to develop their economies. Now, East Yuskov says that there's no external factors that have impeded the West's access to resources such as coal, oil, gas, which have contributed to their economic development. So why other countries have chosen not to adopt the same approach? Well, for instance, India has not yet passed the stage of its heavy coal consumption, and Brazil is a net exporter of oil, but at the same time its country doesn't have enough oil products like petrol and diesel. I mean, as foreign companies are only interested in developing the oil and gas deposits, and they purchase and then ship out the oil. They don't actually build local refineries to meet the needs of the local population. So ideally, the BRICS countries require a model that will enable them to continue trading with each other and developing these sort of situations. Now, to summarise, it's essential that the BRICS replicate all Western institutions, including financial ones, in order to enhance the efficiency and security in their global trade with each other. It's essential to develop universal alternatives to SWIFT. This should encompass the recognition of a broader range of national payment systems, extending beyond Visa and MasterCard. Plus, it's crucial to facilitate seamless trade, ensuring that no individual or entity has the capability to block trade and accounts. Additionally, the establishment of their own pricing agencies and stock exchanges, grain exchanges, metals exchanges will enhance the BRICS' financial autonomy and resilience. So I believe there's going to be a very new wave of interest in these initiatives since they happened. So Putin goes to Anchorage with the main BRICS leaders' moral support, and I think it will be successful. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Also set the alerts button so you get notified when I do a new video. And if you want to help me out, buy me a coffee on the link below. Thank you.